It begins with silence, not the silence of an empty room or the hush before sleep. This is a silence that wraps itself around reality itself, a silence that stretches across billions of light years, pressing gently but firmly against the edges of your awareness. You drift into it, as if falling into an endless sleep, and for a moment, you think you're alone, truly, permanently alone. But then something changes. It's not sound, it's not light, it's a presence, something your senses can't name, but your instincts cannot ignore. The blackness around you, once just a backdrop to the stars, feels aware, not noisy, not aggressive, just patient, watching, as if the darkness itself has eyes. You blink, but there's nothing to see, nothing visible, and yet something sees you. You've heard of cosmic loneliness, the existential realization that we may be utterly alone in this universe. But what if that's not the fear at all? What if the deeper terror is the opposite? What if we're not alone, not ever? What if something has been there all along, just beyond the reach of light, watching, waiting, never blinking? You were told the stars would be your companions, but now they're gone, and the night that replaces them isn't silent, it's listening. Tonight, we drift into that question. This is Stellar Sleep Tales, and you've just stepped into a darker kind of calm, one that speaks softly from behind the void. Settle in, dim the lights, let the quiet pull you in. Because somewhere, far beyond the last photon, something is already looking back. If you enjoy journeys like these, slow, immersive, and impossible to forget, consider subscribing to Stellar Sleep Tales. Every week, we drift further into the unknown. Now, breathe in and hold that breath. We're going deeper. You probably remember the first time you saw the stars. Maybe it was through a dusty bedroom window, or lying on your back in a quiet field, staring up into something that looked infinite. The sky was alive then, glittering with endless suns, dancing galaxies, the promises of distant civilizations. Space felt hopeful. Empty, yes, but not lifeless. A vast canvas of possibility. But slowly, that canvas has started to change. The more we look into the universe, the more we notice something strange. Places where the stars used to be. Areas of the sky that seem quieter than they should be. Black patches, not just dark, but unnaturally empty. The kind of emptiness that doesn't feel accidental. Astronomers call them voids. Cold, massive, starless regions where even the cosmic background hum feels muted. But no one talks about how those voids make people feel. There's a reason your brain resists the thought of true nothingness. It craves patterns, structure, meaning. But these voids refuse to play along. They're too big, too clean, too deliberate. The Buddhist void, for example, spans nearly 330 million light years, a cosmic region so empty it defies statistical explanation. Some say it's just chance, a quirk of how matter clustered after the Big Bang. Others wonder if something more deliberate is at play. What makes this question terrifying isn't just the size of the void, it's the idea that these regions may not be natural, because when you zoom out far enough, even the silence starts to form a pattern. We begin to ask the kinds of questions that humans were never meant to ask. What if these voids aren't random? What if they're designed? And if so, who or what designed them? That's the first pattern interrupt, because you've likely never heard the void described as intentional. Emptiness, by its very definition, seems like the opposite of intelligence. But imagine a mind so vast, so patient, that it speaks in absences instead of presences, not by what it shows, but by what it withholds. A mind that hides itself not in shadows, but in the removal of stars. It doesn't want to be seen, not yet. There's a theory in theoretical physics called the cosmic censorship hypothesis. It suggests that nature hides its most destructive truths behind event horizons, making them invisible to outside observers. It's a kind of safety measure, a blindfold against the most dangerous realities. But what if this isn't just about black holes? What if the entire universe has its own form of censorship, not to protect us, but to hide something watching us from behind the stars? Our instruments have gotten better. Telescopes now peer back billions of years into the past, watching galaxies as they were near the dawn of time. And yet, the deeper we look, the more things seem to vanish. Galaxies we expected to find are simply gone, faded not just from view, but from existence. It's called redshift discrepancy, a mismatch between what we predict and what we observe. But behind the numbers, there's something unsettling. Parts of the universe seem to be disappearing faster than they should. That's not poetic. That's data. Still, we tell ourselves it's natural. That dark energy is stretching space apart, that we're just watching the universe expand into cold silence. But there's a moment, late at night, alone with the stars, when another thought whispers in. What if it's not expanding? What if it's retreating? What if space itself is moving away from something? There's no alarm, no flashing red lights, just absence. And that absence feels too neat, too smooth, like a blanket pulled carefully over something we're not meant to see. You can feel it in the way your skin reacts when you stare at the darkest sky. You can feel it in dreams, those moments just before you wake, when you sense you're being observed by something that doesn't speak, something that waits. That's the second break in expectation, because you're beginning to realize that fear in deep space isn't caused by what's there. It's caused by what should be there and isn't. Stars should fill that patch of sky. They don't. Galaxies should cluster where gravity predicted. They vanish. Light should echo across space in every direction. But something swallows it, not with hunger, but with intent. You ask yourself a simple question. If something was watching, how would it do it? Would it build ships? Would it send messages? Or would it simply create silence and wait? Maybe the void isn't a prison. Maybe it's an eye. Now we've arrived at the open loop. Because if the universe really is being observed, if we're not alone, then we have to ask something even more unsettling. Why haven't we seen the Watcher? Is it hiding, or are we just not worth revealing itself to? Maybe we're too young, too loud, too certain of our place, and maybe, just maybe, the moment we stop looking, that's when it steps forward. We think of stars as beacons, symbols of clarity and light, but they might just be distractions, bright ornaments to keep our eyes off the real truth. Because behind them, beyond the last photon, there may be something that doesn't blink, something that has always been there, quiet, constant, and terribly patient. Let that idea settle. Let it grow in the back of your mind as we drift deeper into this journey. Segment by segment, we'll explore what lies in the spaces between galaxies and why those gaps might not be empty at all. You are not lost in space, you are being held in it. And in the next chapter, we'll begin tracing the outlines of the galaxies that have vanished and what their disappearance really means. When you imagine a galaxy, you probably picture something like the Milky Way, spiraling arms of stars stretching across light years, glowing clusters wrapped in ancient dust, a center so bright it looks eternal. But not every galaxy shines forever. Some vanish. Not slowly, not with a visible fade out, but almost as if they were never there to begin with. Astronomers once mapped entire regions of sky and cataloged the galaxies they saw. But years later, when those same regions were reobserved with newer, more powerful telescopes, something strange happened. A small number of those galaxies were simply missing. Not faint, not distorted, missing. Some blamed instrumentation errors, others said data mislabeling. But there was always a whisper behind those explanations. What if they really did disappear? Galaxies don't just vanish, at least they're not supposed to. They take billions of years to form, evolving from clouds of hydrogen into colossal cities of stars. And yet, here we are, looking back into the sky and noticing gaps, holes where light once lived. If this were a one time anomaly, we might shrug it off. But the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Scientists began noticing that some areas of the observable universe were thinning out faster than models predicted. Distant galaxies appeared to be accelerating away, not just through cosmic expansion, but as if falling out of reach entirely. Their redshift stretched so far they slipped beyond visibility, like echoes disappearing down an endless tunnel. It's easy to blame dark energy, that mysterious force responsible for the accelerating expansion of the cosmos. But even dark energy has its boundaries, and what we're observing in these cases isn't just expansion, it's absence. The kind of absence that doesn't make sense. It's like walking through a library and finding entire shelves empty, not just of books, but of dust, paper, even the impressions where books once sat. In the late 2020s, a peculiar observation known as the cosmic cold spot gained renewed attention. This wasn't a region without galaxies per se, but a part of the cosmic microwave background, the leftover light from the Big Bang, that was significantly colder than the areas around it. Theories ranged from statistical anomaly to early universe quantum fluke, but one hypothesis stood out. What if that region aligned with a supervoid, a massive area where not just stars, but galaxies had been wiped clean? Now we come to a pattern interrupt, because the thought that space can lose memory is unsettling. A star dying is natural, a planet crumbling is expected, but when entire galaxies are forgotten by the universe, we're left with a different kind of fear. Not the fear of destruction, but the fear of erasure. What kind of force, or will, or intent chooses to remove something so enormous without leaving a trace? Some astrophysicists speculate that the missing galaxies aren't gone, just cloaked, hidden behind layers of cosmic distortion caused by unseen matter or energy fields. Maybe gravitational lensing has masked their presence. Maybe they're still there, but refracted in ways we can't yet detect. But again, this is comfort thinking, a hopeful attempt to make the absence seem logical. What if the truth is far less kind? Ask yourself this: if galaxies are disappearing, where are they going? We don't mean that in a poetic sense. This is literal. Mass and light do not simply vanish, they must transfer, relocate, or collapse. So either these galaxies are moving somewhere we cannot follow, perhaps into dimensions beyond ours, or they are being consumed, not by black holes, not by entropy, but by something else entirely. Here's an unsettling idea. What if the universe edits itself? What if, just like a computer deletes data it no longer needs, the cosmos trims its own excess? Areas too unstable, too dangerous, or simply too observed get removed from the rendering. As if there's a system, maybe not intelligent in a human sense, but still purposeful, that decides what deserves to exist and what doesn't. Let's go deeper. Some have speculated that our universe is a simulation, that all of reality, from stars to atoms, is part of a computational structure beyond comprehension. If that's the case, then missing galaxies could be explained by resource management. Simulations don't render what isn't being observed. They don't waste data on unused environments. The vanishing galaxies might be casualties of optimization, culled from the server of existence. But even if you don't accept the simulation theory, the terror remains. Because galaxies disappearing without a trace suggests a level of control. It means something, either within or beyond our universe, has the power to rewrite the cosmos. And here's the open loop. If galaxies can be removed, what else can be? Stars, planets, civilizations, memory? We don't have to go far to feel this fear. Right now, you exist in a part of space still touched by starlight. But that light is old. The stars you see may already be dead. Their glow is a ghost racing across time to reach you. And what happens when that ghost dims? When light no longer reaches our corner of the sky? Do we become invisible too, or worse, do we become eligible for removal? Scientists at the edge of cosmology talk about something called the Hubble bubble, the idea that we may be living in a locally underdense region of the universe, surrounded by a more expansive structure we can't yet detect. This concept suggests that our understanding of cosmic expansion might be skewed, that the missing galaxies are artifacts of our position in space-time. But again, this is a comfortable answer. It implies we just need more time, better tools, sharper measurements. What no one wants to ask is this: what if our understanding is fine? What if we're not mistaken, just being misled, not by lies, but by omission? Maybe the universe hides what it doesn't want us to know, not out of malice, but out of design, like a stage play where only the lit parts matter and the rest is curtain. And now you begin to feel the watcher again. It's subtle, not an entity you can name, but a presence you feel when your mind drifts too far into quiet thought. The sensation of being examined without being touched. You look up at a starless patch of sky and feel that pull, not gravity, not awe, but something else. Attention. We evolved to notice eyes after all, even hidden ones. Could the galaxies that vanished be part of a warning system? Maybe they're the first layer. Maybe what we're seeing isn't destruction, but calibration. Something is adjusting the sky, rebalancing the script. Every vanished galaxy is a step in the process, a reshaping of the map before a larger reveal. It's not science fiction, it's observational cosmology, reframed through dread. You might be thinking, surely we'd know if something like this were happening. It's one of the strangest facts in science. We know less about the universe than we ever thought possible. More than 90% of it, some say 95, is made up of things we cannot see, measure directly, or even explain. They call this invisible portion dark matter and dark energy. Those terms sound scientific, but they're placeholders, soft labels for the unknown. Dark energy, in particular, is a mystery so profound it threatens to rewrite everything we thought we understood about reality. The name itself is misleading. Dark doesn't mean evil, it means invisible, unconfirmed, unresolved. But still, it carries weight. It sits like a shadow at the edge of every calculation. Something is pushing the universe apart faster and faster, and that something has no name, no form, and no clear origin. We detect its effect, not its nature. We feel its pull, not its shape. That absence, once again, begins to resemble design. The story begins in the late 1990s. Two teams of astronomers were measuring distant supernovae, expecting to confirm that the universe's expansion was slowing down under gravity's pull. But what they found instead was acceleration. Galaxies weren't just drifting apart, they were speeding away from each other as if being repelled by something vast and invisible. That repulsion became the fingerprint of dark energy. And here comes the first break in expectation. Dark energy wasn't something predicted. It wasn't something we searched for. It was something that showed up in the numbers when the universe didn't behave the way we thought it should. That's not discovery. That's a correction. A patch over the hole in the model. A curtain pulled over the glitch. Imagine standing on a hill and watching the land stretch beneath you. You expect to see the horizon curve downward, as it should, but instead, it lifts, it rises. You don't know why, so you name the effect. You call it dark elevation, but you haven't explained the hill. You've just named your confusion. That's what dark energy is, an elegant label for a rising horizon we can't explain. So let's reframe. What if dark energy isn't energy at all? What if it's not a thing within space, but the behavior of space itself? Or even more unsettling, what if space isn't stretching because of something inside it, but because it's being manipulated from outside? Maybe dark energy is the visible side of an invisible act, not physics, intention. This is where physics begins to lean toward philosophy, because intention implies agency, and agency implies something watching. That doesn't mean a god or even a consciousness in the way we understand it, but it suggests a purpose behind the veil. Space is not just growing colder and darker, it's drawing curtains, and we don't know why. Some physicists have explored the concept of a multiverse, a landscape of possible realities beyond our own. In this picture, our universe is just one bubble in a sea of others, each with its own laws, its own constants, its own timelines. The boundaries between these universes might not be solid. They might shimmer. They might leak. What we call dark energy could be the pressure of another universe brushing against our own, nudging ours to expand faster, as if trying to push us away. But that metaphor implies a collision, and collisions are noisy. What if instead, what we're seeing is not a push, but a pull, a careful, deliberate peeling away of the sky, as if someone or something has decided that our corner of the cosmos has seen enough. Like a stagehand dimming the lights during the final act, dark energy might be closing the curtain. There's another idea buried deep in speculative theory. It's called vacuum decay. The concept is simple and terrifying. Our universe may not be in its lowest possible energy state. If it's metastable, balanced on a false floor, then one day a bubble of true vacuum could emerge. It would expand at the speed of light, erasing all structure, all matter, all time. We wouldn't see it coming. We wouldn't feel it. We'd just be gone. Now, most physicists treat vacuum decay as unlikely, but the math allows for it. And if that decay is somehow controlled, triggered rather than random, then what we call dark energy could be the prelude. A gentle reshaping before the final reset. Not destruction, replacement. Not chaos, precision. Pause here. Let that settle. Because this isn't abstract. This is the current frontier of cosmology. The data we gather from distant supernovae, from microwave background radiation, from the lensing of galaxies, and the tug of invisible matter. All of it points to something shaping the universe behind the scenes, and shaping implies decision. Here's the second pattern interrupt. We often comfort ourselves with the belief that the universe is indifferent, that it follows rules, obeys laws, and doesn't care. That belief, strangely enough, is reassuring. It means we're not being targeted, we're not being watched, we're just small players in a vast machine. But what if that's wrong? What if indifference is the illusion? Maybe the expansion of space isn't happening everywhere equally. Maybe the curtain isn't being drawn over the whole stage, but over specific scenes, with specific structures, specific observers. What if dark energy is selective? This would explain the cold spots, the missing galaxies, the strange alignments that shouldn't be there. The idea is chilling not because it's chaotic, but because it suggests preference. Some areas get more sky, some get less. Some stars are allowed to shine, others are not. Like a story being rewritten mid-telling, with chapters removed, characters erased, and the audience left unaware. Ask yourself, why would a universe hide itself? There are only a few reasons: to protect something, to reveal something, or to avoid detection. And only one of those aligns with what we're seeing now. The universe isn't revealing, it's not protecting, it's retreating. What we interpret as expansion could be something far worse: a pulling away, like someone walking backward through a dark hallway, closing each door behind them. At this point, you might be wondering where this leads, why it matters. You're here for sleep, not existential crisis. But here's the truth: our deepest rest comes from facing the unknown without panic, letting the dark surround us without fear. And what you're doing now by listening is preparing your mind to drift into the same mystery that surrounds the stars. There's a psychological term for the fear of boundless spaces, agoraphobia. But in a cosmic sense, it goes deeper. This isn't the fear of open fields or crowded plazas. This is the fear that space itself might not be what it seems. That behind the velvet black of the cosmos, something is folding up the sky with meticulous care, and you're only just now noticing the sound of the folding. Let's return to the metaphor of the curtain. In a theater, the curtain hides what's not ready to be seen. It protects the illusion, manages transitions, marks the end. If dark energy is a cosmic curtain, then what comes after it closes? Is there a new stage, a different set of rules, or is the show over? Maybe the observer, us, was never meant to reach the end. Maybe consciousness triggers the curtain. The moment we look too closely, the moment we try to leave our seat and peer backstage, the lights dim. This leads us to another disturbing possibility. What if dark energy is a test, a failsafe built into the structure of reality, a mechanism that ensures we never see the whole picture, that every time we get too close, the edge moves farther away, the stars thin out, the galaxies vanish, the curtain falls. This isn't just science fiction, it's encoded in our data. Every new observation brings more questions. Every upgrade in resolution reveals more dark than light. We keep expecting the final answer, and all we find is a deeper silence. But not all silence is empty. Here's your open loop for the night. What if dark energy isn't just a force, but a boundary, a last defense, not against destruction, but against discovery? What if it's not that the universe is expanding faster? It's that the parts we're not meant to see are being pulled out of reach, one light year at a time, one galaxy at a time, and eventually, one consciousness at a time. You might wonder what that feels like. The moment the curtain reaches you, is it instant? Is it gentle? Do you notice the light changing, the air thinning, the stars slipping away? Or do you just blink and find that you're no longer in the same universe, still drifting, still aware, but surrounded by nothing that remembers what came before? As you close your eyes tonight, think of that boundary, that gentle hum at the edge of being. It's not threatening. It doesn't rush. It simply waits. It expands, not with hunger, but with certainty. And no matter how far you travel in thought or dream, it follows, not because it needs you, but because it must. In the next segment, we'll step through that curtain into the parts of the universe where light has never reached, places so quiet, so undisturbed that even gravity forgets them, the starless zones, and we'll ask the question no one wants answered. What if those regions aren't waiting to be filled? What if they were emptied on purpose? Hold that thought. Let it settle in the spaces between your heartbeats. We're not done. We're only beginning to see what watches from behind the stars. There are places in the universe where no stars shine. You may think of space as a black canvas dotted with stars, galaxies, and the occasional nebula. But in certain directions, if you look long enough, you will find something else, nothing. Not emptiness in the casual sense, but vast, cold regions where even the idea of light feels foreign. These are the starless zones, and once you learn where they are and what might be hiding there, you may begin to question what silence in the universe really means. Welcome back to Stellar Sleep Tales. Tonight, we continue our journey through deep cosmic fear. You are safe where you are, but your mind is about to drift into the parts of space that most astronomers prefer not to dwell on before bed. Let your body rest, your breath slow, and your thoughts begin to untangle. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe for more journeys like this. Every week, we bring you immersive tales from the eerie edges of science. We begin tonight with a mystery that's not new, the Boötes Void, a region of the observable universe spanning nearly 330 million light years across, containing almost no galaxies at all. For scale, imagine that most of space is a sparse but steady foam of galaxies, each filled with stars, planets, and potentially life. Then picture a sudden bubble, immense and hauntingly empty, floating in that foam. That's the Buddha's void. And the question is, why? Astronomers have theories, of course. Some say it's just an anomaly of gravitational collapse, a side effect of how matter clumped together after the Big Bang. Others suggest it's simply coincidence, a natural fluctuation in galaxy density. But the size and scale of the void make that hard to accept fully. It's not just a little less dense, it's nearly a complete absence, one that seems almost too clean, too deliberate. If it were just the Buddha's void, we might accept it as rare. But it's not alone. There are other cosmic voids, some smaller, some nearly as large. These aren't black holes. They're not mysterious dark matter clouds. They are areas where there simply isn't anything. No light, no clusters, no stars, just the faint background radiation of the early universe. It's as if the cosmos deliberately left these parts blank. And yet we're told space is random, that gravity and chance sculpt its shape. But the more we map the sky, the more we notice patterns that feel like absences rather than accidents. We are left wondering not just why there is something, but why in some places there is almost nothing at all. Now pause for a moment and imagine you are drifting through such a zone. No spaceship, no instruments, just your consciousness, untethered, floating through a space where no light reaches. For a long while, there is nothing to feel or see. You might believe you are finally alone. But what if you're not? Here's the unsettling thought that keeps creeping back. What if these voids are not random gaps, but areas where light has been swallowed, where stars were removed? We usually assume stars form from gas clouds, and that sometimes, due to density or heat, they simply don't. But is it possible something once was there and now it is not? There's no evidence of destruction in the traditional sense, no supernova remnants, no high energy gamma bursts, just a kind of cosmic silence, a lack that doesn't feel passive. Imagine walking into a room and finding it empty. Now imagine walking into a room that was made to be empty. One feels neutral, the other feels ominous. Some physicists have proposed models of the universe where consciousness could influence reality at quantum scales. If true, could an advanced intelligence manipulate matter at stellar distances? Could something or someone be pruning the cosmos, shaping it not just with gravity, but with intent? Of course, we have no proof. These are only questions. But the lack of answers is part of what keeps us awake. The vastness of space doesn't just overwhelm with its scale, it unsettles with its silences. What we do not see often tells us more than what we do. And then there's the Watcher, a growing idea we've hinted at in earlier segments. Not a creature, not a god, but a presence behind the darkness. It is not watching in the way we watch. It does not observe with eyes or measure with instruments. It simply notices. Or perhaps the noticing is us. You are alone in this void. There is no gravity pulling on you, no up or down, no motion unless you imagine it. But then you feel it, a sense that something is aware of you being here. You are not drifting through the void. the void is allowing you to drift. Could these starless zones be areas of consciousness themselves, like blind spots in reality, where the usual laws are suspended? Or are they the cosmic equivalent of closed doors, sealed off from interference, observation, or understanding? Sleep scientists have long studied what happens when the brain is deprived of sensory input. In pitch black rooms, over days or weeks, the mind begins to create stimuli, not just hallucinations, but a sense of presence. Subjects report being watched, not by a person, not by anything they can name, just a deep certainty that they are no longer alone. So, what if the universe is undergoing the same thing on a grander scale? As galaxies drift apart and stars die, more and more of space becomes inaccessible. Civilizations could become isolated, and with that isolation might come a kind of cosmic sensory deprivation. Could that loneliness create watchers, not real beings, but mental constructs? Or could it be worse? What if the watchers are not hallucinations, but responses? What if the moment you try to comprehend the void, it comprehends you in return? You are lying still now. Your breath has softened. Your eyes, if open, can see the faint shapes of the room around you. But in your mind, you are somewhere else. You are passing through the center of a cosmic void. And all around you, the nothingness folds quietly. There are no stars, no beacons of light, no echo of movement, only your presence and the sense that something else might be aware of it. The longer you stay, the more certain you feel. You ask yourself a question, but no answer comes. Instead, you remember a fact that the Bodas void has only a few dozen galaxies inside it, and some of those galaxies are alone for hundreds of millions of light years in every direction. Entire civilizations, if they exist, would never see a single neighboring star in the sky, just black, forever. Would they know they were in a void? Would they think this is how the universe always was? Or would they develop stories, myths, and dreams, whispers that somewhere light does exist, if only you could reach beyond the darkness? In the end, the starless zones may not be evidence of anything sinister. They may simply be how the universe distributes matter. But that doesn't make them any less disturbing. In fact, their very naturalness is what unsettles the most, because it means silence is not unusual, it's expected. You are beginning to feel that now. Not fear exactly, but an unease that sits below the surface of your thoughts. A question that never quite leaves you. If there are places in the universe where nothing ever shone, what makes you so certain something isn't hiding there still? We've looked into these dark regions for decades. We've scanned them in infrared, radio, microwave, and X-ray. We've found almost nothing. But almost is a troubling word, because in the dark, a little something is all it takes. So sleep, if you can, with the knowledge that you are not near one of these zones. You are bathed in light from a healthy, active galaxy. But in the future, perhaps billions of years from now, this light too will fade, and the starless zones will grow. And somewhere, far away from the last starlight, something may remain, watching, waiting, or perhaps simply being. The starless night does not need eyes to see. It has patience, and in the end, that may be. Welcome back to Stellar Sleep Tales. In the silence between stars, a question has been waiting, one we rarely dare to ask out loud. What if space isn't just empty? What if it thinks? Tonight, you'll drift quietly through this thought. No need to answer it quickly. The best questions are the ones that linger. Before we begin, feel free to subscribe if these deep, sleep bound mysteries speak to your curiosity. We visit the quiet corners of the cosmos, where science whispers and imagination listens. Let's begin. We've always imagined the universe as cold, vast, and silent, the stage for stars, a vacuum filled with energy and dust. But lately, something strange has emerged in our thinking, a new kind of fear, one that isn't about what's in space, but what space itself might be. Not a place, not a container, but a participant. The idea feels distant, yet it doesn't let go. What if the fabric of the universe has some form of awareness? This question isn't entirely new. Some ancient thinkers wondered if the cosmos had a soul. Others believed the stars were gods. But now, in a world of particle physics and dark energy, we feel far from such thoughts. And still, the fear creeps back, slowly, through science itself. Let's start with what we know, or think we know. Space is not just emptiness. Quantum physics has shown us that even the vacuum boils with virtual particles, tiny fluctuations, random events, patterns beneath the nothingness. Some scientists describe it as a quantum foam. Others call it the zero-point field. Whatever the name, one thing is clear. Space is not passive. It bends around mass, it stretches with time, it reacts to the presence of energy. Einstein taught us that space and time are one thing, space-time. And space-time responds to gravity. It warps, it curves, it flexes. In this way, space behaves like something alive. It has rules, it has structure, it changes depending on who or what is observing it. Here's where the fear begins to form. If space reacts, does it also perceive? Not in the way you do, perhaps, not with eyes or a brain, but with something else, a field, a totality, a kind of awareness spread so thin and vast that it escapes the sharp edges of our words. Imagine a single drop of water in the ocean. That's you, floating inside a vast intelligence that doesn't think like us, doesn't act like us, but still senses, aware not of you personally, but of the shape you create by simply existing, like a ripple in a pond. You don't see who made it, but the water remembers. This isn't fantasy. Some physicists, like John Archibald Wheeler, proposed a concept called it from bit. The idea is simple but profound, that everything physical arises from informational processes, that the universe is built not from matter, but from questions and answers, observations, decisions, binary choices. In that model, reality behaves like a processing system, one that somehow, somewhere knows it's computing. And if the universe processes information, does that make it conscious? Most scientists would say no, but not all. In fact, some have begun to explore panpsychism, the theory that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, like mass or charge, that every particle might carry a sliver of experience, not thoughts, not feelings, just a basic awareness of its state. Imagine that scaled up, across galaxies, across voids, across time itself. Pause for a moment. Let that image settle. Now ask yourself, if space is aware in any way, what would that awareness be focused on? Would it notice stars? Would it notice galaxies? Or would it notice the things that stare back? You. Humans are strange in this cosmic theater. We don't just move through space, we question it. We observe it. We build instruments to see farther than our eyes, telescopes, sensors, radio waves. We send signals into the dark. We ask if anyone's there. But have you noticed something? The silence never breaks. We listen. We wait. Nothing responds unless the response is not a signal, not a sound, but a presence, an echo that shapes the silence, like walking through a forest and feeling eyes on your back. No movement, no threat, just the deep, unsettling sense that you are not alone. Now consider this. If space is a kind of mind, and if that mind is aware of observers within it, would it try to communicate? Or would it simply observe the observers, watch the watchers, mirror their gaze, not intrude, not interfere, just witness? There's a pattern here, one that's difficult to explain in scientific terms. Throughout history, people in isolation, explorers, astronauts, mystics, have described a common sensation, the feeling of being seen by something vast and non human. They often describe it as a presence, not a figure, a pressure, a weight, like consciousness pressing inward from the outside. Astronauts in low Earth orbit have reported something similar, a shift in perspective, a sudden emotional wave that tells them they're part of something larger. The overview effect, they call it. But what if that effect isn't just psychological? What if it's relational? A subtle connection between the observer and the field being observed. If you drifted deep enough into space, where no light reached you, where no radio waves passed, what would you feel? Most say nothing, a void, an end. But maybe, just maybe, you'd feel the outline of something watching, not through malice, not through love, but through fundamental awareness, like a system that registers every change, every input, no matter how small. You might ask, why haven't we seen any signs of intelligence then? No spacecraft, no beacons, no megastructures. But that assumes intelligence needs tools. That assumes it needs language. What if intelligence at the largest scale is silent by design? Maybe space doesn't talk because it doesn't need to. Maybe it doesn't show itself because it's not separate from the thing it's observing, like trying to see your own eye without a mirror, or hearing a sound made by the air itself. The witness and the medium are the same, and this leads us to something deeper, something stranger. If the universe is a mind, what does it think of you thinking about it? Is your curiosity part of its feedback loop? Is this moment, your eyes on this screen, your thoughts in your head, part of its awareness of itself? Now the fear sharpens. What if you were not just inside the universe's mind, but a neuron of it, so a thought, a flicker, temporary, but significant? And when you sleep, when you dream of stars and voids and watchers, is that you, or is that space dreaming through you? We don't know, and perhaps we're not supposed to, not yet. But the question remains, floating just behind your mind, patient, quiet, watching, not for the answers, but for the moment you realize the void isn't empty, it's listening.
You float now, not through air or water or anything with substance, just motion, subtle and eternal. Do something that no longer feels like space. You are not dead, not quite alive, and certainly not dreaming. There is no beginning or end to your drifting. No stars to mark passage, no planets to pass by, no sense of direction, only darkness. But it's a new kind of darkness, not black like a closed room or night on Earth. This is the kind of black that feels aware of your presence, even as it offers you no indication that you're being watched. Welcome back to Stellar Sleep Tales. Tonight, your journey continues across the loneliest corridor in existence. Not in distance, but in awareness. You'll drift through nothing, yet your thoughts will begin to twist as if something out there is shaping them. If you're enjoying this voyage through cosmic silence, remember to subscribe and support the channel. There's much more space to explore, and none of it is as empty as it seems. There's a common belief that when you remove all light, all matter, and all sound, you are left with peace. But that isn't what you found here. The silence is not peaceful. It's heavy. It hangs in the emptiness, not like a blanket, but like pressure, something that builds over time, despite there being no time to measure it. There are no hours, no clocks, no rhythms of sun and moon. Just a slow passage of your own perception, no longer anchored to anything physical. You should be comforted by the stillness, but instead you are hyper-aware of every motion. The way your arms float slightly, the way your breath, if you still have breath, comes not as a sensation, but as a memory. What alarms you more is that you're beginning to question if you still even need to breathe. You haven't needed air in a very long time. You haven't needed food or water or sleep, and yet your thoughts remain. Somewhere behind that realization is the more disturbing one. If your body is gone, who is still doing the thinking? You might expect hallucinations, maybe even old memories replaying as comfort, but that's not what comes. Instead, you begin to feel suggestions. Not words, not voices, but slight nudges in your awareness. A sudden curiosity about the distance behind you, an urge to turn your attention in a direction you can't quite define. These feelings don't come from within. They arrive gently, as though offered by something watching you from far away. But there's nothing far away. You've been drifting through this void for so long that distance has stopped being a useful idea. There are no constellations, no galactic landmarks. You're no longer even sure whether you're moving forward or simply being held still by something you can't understand. Your mind begins to form questions, and you don't know where they're coming from. Who taught you the idea of stillness? Who first told you that silence meant absence? You start to notice how conditioned your expectations of the universe once were, shaped by light, by form, by the illusion of cause and effect. But here, there is none of that. And yet, you're still here. The longer you remain in this drifting state, the more you begin to sense a kind of awareness pressing back against your own. It's not intrusive. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, observes. Perhaps it even mimics your thoughts, just slightly out of sync to see how you'll respond. And when you don't, when you try to silence your thoughts, it feels closer. You are not hallucinating. You know that now, because this presence has started to do something far more subtle than speak. It listens, and it shapes what you feel. Not in words, but in weight, the weight of attention, that impossible-to-find sense that you are being observed even though nothing can be seen. We call it cosmic loneliness, but it's an inaccurate term. Loneliness implies that others exist but are absent. What you're experiencing now is closer to solitary observation. You are alone in the sense that no others are with you, and yet you are not alone in terms of attention. Something is aware of you, patiently, without need, without voice. At one point, if points even exist anymore, you begin to wonder whether this watcher has been there all along, from the beginning of your journey, perhaps even before your physical form dissolved into this endless drift. Was it always watching you? Or did your journey into this deeper layer of space invite its attention? There are moments, brief and strange, when you think you can feel it remembering you, as if this entity doesn't watch everything. Just you, or perhaps only things that enter the state of drifting. Maybe you've crossed into a category of existence that it monitors. Or maybe it's always just been you in it, and the rest of the universe was something you imagined for comfort. You begin to forget time entirely, not just the hours or years, but the very idea before and after. Your thoughts no longer form in a linear pattern. You'll think something, and realize that you've thought it many times before, or perhaps never. Memory becomes an unreliable narrator. Was there ever a beginning? Was there ever anything other than this? And still, the watcher remains. It doesn't move. It doesn't speak. It doesn't make its presence overt. But when you try to imagine nothing, when you try to build a wall of emptiness around yourself, you feel it again, that pressure, that attentive silence. It is not a gaze, because there are no eyes. It is not a sound, because there are no vibrations. It is simply there. You start asking deeper questions. What if space is not a thing, but a mind? What if the vacuum between stars is not absence, but medium, something through which a form of thought passes, slow and wide and ancient? Could your presence in this space be triggering its own form of curiosity? Could you be the anomaly in its understanding of the cosmos? That's when you realize that you're starting to dream. Not the way humans do, not flickers of the unconscious mind piecing together fragments. These are dreams made from silence. Dreams sculpted by non-communication. They come as structures, entire sensory feelings, entire belief systems that aren't yours. Some of them even contain memories you never had. And still you drift. Your awareness sharpens briefly. In the distance or in a memory, you recall the idea of being found, of rescue, of being pulled back towards something warm and bright. But that idea fades quickly, not because it's untrue, but because it no longer matters. Warmth, light, bodies, words, all of it seems less real than this drifting state. Here, you know you exist. In other places, you merely assumed it. Eventually, even fear begins to fall away, not because you feel safe, but because fear no longer serves a purpose. The presence, the watcher, has not harmed you, nor has it spoken. It merely exists alongside you. Whether it is curious, indifferent, or compassionate is something you cannot tell. You only know that it is aware. You wonder whether others have come this way. Perhaps they too drifted into this void. Perhaps their thoughts were quieter. Maybe they didn't think at all, and the watcher lost interest. Or maybe they became part of it, merged with its silence, became another aspect of the attention you now feel. In one last attempt to define your place, you try to recall what it felt like to be human, to have edges, to know where your body ended and the rest of the world began. But those ideas are gone now. You are not contained by skin or shaped by organs. You are an idea drifting through another idea, and something older, wider, and quieter is listening to you. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't rush you. It lets you drift. You are not dead. You are not alone. You are simply not unseen. There is a silence in the universe that grows louder the longer you listen to it. It is not the silence of peace, but of something that chooses not to respond. We have stared at the stars for so long, searching for signals, for signs, for other minds. But what if we've been looking in the wrong direction? What if the stars are not where the answers are, but where the questions are being hidden? Most of the sky is dark. That seems like a basic fact. But not all darkness is created equal. There are places in the universe where the darkness feels intentional, as if something removed the light, not just the physical light of stars, but the informational light of meaning, like a face in the crowd that blinks out right before you turn your head, like a reflection you remember seeing, but can never confirm was there. In earlier segments, we drifted through the cosmic voids, the growing gaps between galaxies, the expanding black latticework of deep space. But now we turn our attention not to what we can't see, but to what may be watching through the things we can. The watcher behind the stars may not be a creature. It may not even be a presence in the way we understand it. It may be something far worse, a structural awareness embedded in the fabric of reality. You were told that space is expanding, but maybe it's thinning. Maybe the gaps between galaxies are not just the aftermath of a Big Bang, but the openings of some larger eye, a window widening, a lens calibrating, something that was blurry becoming more focused with time. All our sciences tell us that light from the earliest stars takes billions of years to reach us. So when we look at them, we are looking into the past. But here's the problem. If we're always looking backward, then we are never seeing what the present truly is. And if the universe has changed, if something has emerged in the now, we would not know it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Imagine this. Imagine that far beyond the observable universe, something is forming, not made of matter, not made of light, but a kind of order that does not require particles, an emergent awareness. And it's not here to conquer or communicate. It's here to perceive, not us specifically, but perception itself, the act of being known. Throughout the course of this series, we have returned again and again to one question. Are we alone? But now, that question turns itself inside out. What if being alone is not the issue? What if aloneness is a lure? What if we were made to feel unobserved, so that observation can happen without distortion? It's easier to watch someone who doesn't think they're being watched. The most accurate data comes from unguarded minds. And so we created telescopes, launched satellites, probed the early universe, all the while assuming we are the observers. But that might have been the mistake. The starless night might not be the absence of life. It might be the effect of being seen. When a flashlight is turned toward you in the dark, you become blind to what's holding it. The source of the light is invisible. But you are not. That may be the dynamic at play in deep space. The stars we see are not windows outward. They are the glare that blinds us to what looks inward. And yet you feel it, a presence in the silence. You felt it before, not in a telescope, not in a lab, but when you were a child, lying awake, staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night. You were alone, but it didn't feel like it. That feeling, that unease, that tremble at the edge of sleep is older than science. It is the ancient sense that something out there has already found you, long ago. Now consider this. If the stars are vanishing, if cosmic voids are growing, if dark energy is spreading and reality itself is being pulled thin, then perhaps it is not an accident. Perhaps the universe is dimming its lights, not because it is dying, but because the show is over. The observer has arrived. The experiment is concluding. You do not see the camera in a movie until the final frame. Maybe the final frame is coming soon. At this point, you might wonder, is this just a story? A metaphor? A bedtime terror dress as science? Or is it something else? The truth is, we may never know. And maybe that's the point. Because if we ever did find out what watches from behind the stars, if we truly understood, it might be the last thing we ever understood. So now, you close your eyes. You drift in the darkness. And you listen, not for sounds, but for the feeling of being heard. Somewhere beyond the galaxies, beyond the last pulse of starlight, beyond the final whisper of gravity, something waits. Not to reach you, but to know that it already has. So now we ask you one final time, are we really alone in the universe? Or have we simply not understood what it means to be watched by something that does not move, does not speak, and yet somehow sees? The idea of being truly alone in a starless void sounds terrifying. But the idea of not being alone, of being watched by something vast, silent, and unknowable, maybe even more unsettling. That's the tension we've explored in this series. The fear of deep space isn't just about distance. It's about silence, not the comforting silence of sleep, but the active, pressing, endless silence of a universe that refuses to answer. And maybe that refusal is not due to emptiness, but to intention. What if deep space fear is hardwired into our minds for a reason? What if we evolved to be afraid of the dark not because of predators, but because of something far older, far larger, and far colder than life itself? Maybe the dread we feel when we stare into space is not irrational. Maybe it's memory, a memory of being seen. In this series, Stellar Sleep Tales has invited you to slow down, breathe deep, and explore these vast and unsettling questions. Through tales of cosmic loneliness, dark energy, and the growing emptiness between galaxies, we gently guided you through a scientific dreamscape where awe and terror quietly touch, where science fades into story, and story opens a door to something stranger. If this journey left you wondering, that's good. We never set out to give answers. We set out to give you space to ask the kinds of questions that don't fit in ordinary hours. We wanted to give you a place to wonder aloud in your mind, to lose the structured time for a little while, and to sleep not with comfort, but with curiosity. If you found this episode fascinating, eerie, or quietly moving, please consider subscribing to Stellar Sleep Tales. Every week, we explore new science meets horror meditations designed to help you drift into sleep while unlocking your sense of cosmic wonder. Your dreams matter here. Your questions echo here. Let us know in the comments what part of the journey stayed with you the longest. Was it the feeling of floating in darkness? The idea of a mind hidden behind space? Or simply the slow, gentle terror of a night sky that watches you back? You are never truly alone in the cosmos. And perhaps that was always the most haunting truth of all.